This lesson discusses creating your own functions. Topics include: why would you want to create your own functions? What is the syntax for defining a function? What should go inside the function? How do you call the function? Are variables defined inside functions going to affect the rest of the program? What if you want to use variables defined outside the function? Moving now to our first code example, the first question is, why would you want to use a function at all? Let's take a look at this example. You'll notice that on lines 8, 9, and 10, we have 3 arrays representing different types of food. On lines 13 through 18, we go through the array using a for each loop, creating a UL, LI, HTML unordered list. On lines 22 through 27, the code is almost identical, except that you'll notice on line 22, we're referring to vegetables. And on line 24, in the for each loop, we're going through the vegetables array instead of the fruits array. And then finally, moving to the end of the block of code, you'll notice the same thing, except that we're referring to meats and $meats as the array. So let's go ahead and take a look at the output from the browser. So you notice we have a list of fruits, a list of vegetables, and a list of meats in the form of an HTML unordered list. One thing that you might notice is that the code block seems to be repeating. In fact, they are identical except for the label, fruits, and the array, $fruits. Notice on line 22, the label is vegetables, the array is $vegetables. Wouldn't it be nice if you could somehow consolidate this code so that you don't have to repeat the same block of code every single time? That's exactly what a function will do for you. Let's move now to the second code example, and you'll notice that we've taken these blocks of code and we've consolidated them and made them somewhat more generic by substituting variables for the label and for the array. First of all, notice the syntax. Function, followed by a space, followed by the name of the function, followed by the parameters, in this case the label and the array, in parentheses. Inside the function, what we're going to do is to accumulate the output into a variable called $output. We're going to be using the concatenate equals operator to add information to this variable. We're going to go through the same loop that you saw before, producing the UL-LI combination, and then we're going to return the variable as a return value for the function. On lines 20, 21, and 22, we have our 3 arrays, the same as before. Now notice the big difference. On line 25, instead of repeating the same block of code that you saw previously, we simply echo the return value from the function. We give it 2 values, fruits and the array $fruits. On line 28, same thing. The label is vegetables, the array is $vegetables. On line 31, again, we repeat using the same function, but we give it different values. The label is meats, the array is $meats. Each time the function is called, a temporary association is made between these values, fruits with the variable label, and $fruits and $array. So a temporary association is made for the purposes of executing the function. Once the function terminates, we move to the next call. Another temporary association is made. So now label, $label, in the function becomes vegetables. $array in the function becomes $vegetables. And the function code proceeds, just as you saw before. Let's now move to the browser and have a look at the result. So as you can see, we have an identical result, the label fruits, the array in a UL-LI HTML combination, vegetables, a list of vegetables, meats, a list of meats. Moving back to the code, as you can see, this allows us for an infinite number of labels and arrays, but we can use the same function repetitively again and again and again. In review, why would you want to create your own functions? Defining functions lets you group your code into logical segments, and it makes it easier to reuse within the same application, or if you want to take the function and move it to another website that you're developing, it makes it much easier to do so. What is the syntax for defining a function? The keyword function, followed by the name of the function. Notice that we do recommend that you use camel case to make the name more descriptive, and one or more parameters in parentheses. The block of code starts with an open brace, ends with an ending brace. You can then have one or more lines of code inside the function. Each line of code must be terminated with a semicolon. What should go inside the function? Any block of code that you find yourself using again and again and again repetitively inside the program. How do you call the function? You call the function by the name within your program. You can then call it as many times as you want. Are variables defined inside functions going to affect the rest of the program? No. Variables defined inside the function are local to that function. This topic is discussed in more detail when we discuss global variables. What if you want to use variables defined outside the function? The best practice is to pass the desired variable into the function as a parameter. Parameters are discussed in another lesson. This concludes our discussion of creating your own functions.